In the summer of 2010, the news of the Deepwater Horizon drilling rig explosion captured the attention of the world. The explosion caused the facilities to burn and sink and to start a massive offshore oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. I pushed the Deepwater Horizon oil spill to the back of my mind when I took a trip to Alaska. As an aspiring filmmaker, I couldn't help but become fascinated by Alaska's natural beauty and the possibility of finding my own story. I found myself in Homer, Alaska, a quaint fishing village. As I walked the boating docks, I struck up conversations with locals whose viewpoints on the Louisiana spill were different from what I had been hearing on the news. These Alaskans had been greatly affected by the Exxon Valdez oil spill in Prince William Sound 20 years before. Their emotions were still raw, and they were anxious to voice their opinions. Every person I talked to had their own perspective, and I realized there was a story to tell.
When the Exxon Valdez oil spill happened, I was a graduate student, an oceanography graduate student in Fairbanks, and so I came down on the university's research vessel and checked out the spill firsthand.
I was working as maid on a big landing craft at the time, and so we were deployed right away. And we got there within 18 hours after the spill. And as we came into it, we actually went through the oil, and the toxicity and the smell was just totally powerful for us.
It's psychologically devastating because oil looks horrible on the water. Even small amounts look like large amounts, and so when you actually do get a large amount of oil, it's a devastating thing to think about and look at it.
We were sitting there on anchor waiting for booms to arrive, and the wind came up and it started spreading oil everywhere. We actually were at anchor when it hit the beaches. We saw moose because they had come down and fallen, slipped in the oil and gotten into the water, and that was it. Eagles, came down. Seals and otters took a really big hit. There was a lot of dead whales floating around Prince William Sound. Everything was devastated.
There was no fail-safe. No one sat around and said, what happens if this thing catastrophically fails?
Properly regulated, that industry does no harm. But I think that's the thing, that you need a set of regulations and a set of controls so that they don't go in and tear up the pea patch, as they say.
Don't you think your stockholders would like it if you said, we're going to operate the safest tanker fleet in the world, and there'll never be another $2 billion loss, but it's going to cost a little more, and I tell you there are going to be times when we're going to have to slow down the shipments, it's going to slow down the refineries, it's going to cut into the profits. I don't see any willingness to cut back on profits here.
Our previous administration just rubber-stamped everything for oil exploration. They didn't care about the environment or the health of the common individual. It was all about stuffing their pockets with cash.
All these little things tend to add up, and when they aren't addressed, then it's just a ticking bomb.
The Deepwater Horizon oil spill went on for 3 months. When it was finally stopped, it had leaked about 4.9 million barrels of crude oil into the Gulf of Mexico and had left over 665 miles of coastline contaminated.
This thing is going to make the Exxon Valdez look like a little puddle.
The world is unpredictable. We already face danger with natural disasters like earthquakes, floods, tornadoes, tsunamis, and more. We cannot afford to create our own man-made disasters.
We were an example that should have changed things. The oil spill that's going on now, with my experience from the oil spill that happened in '89, these people are so screwed because they believe that people are going to help them, the government's going to come, the state's going to come, BP is going to come, everybody's going to help, but in reality, they're on their own. They're going to see very little in compensation, they're going to wait years for it. Many of them, their whole lives are going to be changed.
Alaskan claims were delayed up to 20 years, and, when finally paid, were around only 10% of what Exxon had promised. Lessons learned after the Exxon Valdez did not prevent the BP oil spill. But the frustration the Alaskans felt, now 20 years later, helped shape BP's approach to handling the Gulf spill and creating a smoother recovery. While their response has been far from perfect, BP has taken more responsibility than Exxon did and has provided faster cleanup and compensation. BP has paid $4.7 billion to more than 200,000 of the million claymates. But the claims are only part of the picture. Oil is still found on Alaskans' beaches, and wildlife like herring have still not recovered. We have yet to see the long-term impact of the BP spill. Philosopher George Santayana once said, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." We have the knowledge and the power to learn from these past mistakes and make sure they never happen again.
Hopefully they'll learn a lot from our mistakes up here and do it right.
Hope for the best. Hope someone who actually cares comes up with a solution here, because this is one of the worst, man-made catastrophes. So don't give up. People here didn't either.
Through this experience, I've realized how disasters don't just affect the people in the direct area around it, but they affect everyone. I decided I wanted to contribute by making a film that might get people talking and spread awareness. We can all do something. How can you help?